Hey everyone, welcome back to the worst channel on YouTube. My name is Matt, and this is my series on Buddhism, or at least my interpretation of Buddhism, which I call Centrism. Check out the first video in this series for more explanation on this, but if you've already caught up or don't care, welcome back or just welcome. And thanks for checking this out, and I hope you enjoy. So initially, I was just going to have my next video be an in-depth exploration of the First Noble Truth, followed by 3 other videos on the other truths because they are the central focus of Buddhism.
You're still doing that?
I've only gotten better.
But I didn't think this would be all that interesting. This is not because they aren't important, and I do intend on going more in depth on those in the future, but it's more because they're more commonly known, and I did at least touch on them in the first video on Centrism, so with this video I wanted to talk about something a bit different. One area where Centrism differs from traditional Buddhism, which is monasticism.
You must live life truthfully.
Yeah, no, I do live truthfully, but I'm just so full of passion.
You are so full of
Yeah.
When you think of Buddhism, I bet the first thing you picture is a monk or a nun in an orange or red robe, which is a rather iconic image associated with Buddhism. The order of monks and nuns was created by the Buddha, and the original purpose of someone joining the order was to dedicate their lives to seeking enlightenment. The idea was that everyday life can distract someone from seeking enlightenment, and so retreating from those demands allowed one to focus more solely on nirvana. This was the original goal of the monastic order. Over time, though, the role of monk expanded to include teaching others about the Dharma, humanitarian work, and the upkeep of monasteries, but the central goal of concentrating on nirvana for one's entire life was still at the heart of the order. This is a good and noble cause, but times have changed, and the monastic order has not grown with it. The Buddha encouraged a continual growth of his religion, but sadly, this one aspect of Buddhism has fallen by the wayside. The Buddha in his lifetime prescribed rules by which monks and nuns must live, and like everything he did, he tried to base these rules on the concept of balance. Monastics shouldn't live as ascetics or as spoiled royalty. Instead, they should live a life of moderation. And in his day, the prevailing religion of the land was Hinduism, with their clergy routinely starving themselves, torturing their bodies, and suffering as much as possible. In contrast, the rich ruling class of the day lived in luxury.
I mean, is any of this real? How do I know what's real?
You see me before you, yes? I am real to you. And this bag next to me, it is as real as you or me.
Oh, no, I know that one's real. I meant the other one, the Louis Vuitton. I don't remember Vuitton having 2 E's.
He saw the problems with both extremes, and for his monastic order, he told them not to pursue either one. But beyond this edict, he modeled the order after Hindu traditions of the day, since this was the prevailing religion. These 2 ideas, Hindu monasticism and balance in all things, came together to form the current Buddhist clergy. The problem with this today is that times have changed and continue to change. Buddhist monks are no longer balanced between the world's extremes, and instead are very close to the extreme of asceticism by today's standards. This is not in line with the Buddha's teachings, and therefore in Centrism we would have a reformed order, where monks and nuns would dedicate their lives to seeking nirvana and spreading the Dharma, but would not be as restricted as traditional Buddhist monks. We believe that the rules guiding the monastic order should grow with the times and with our understanding to stay in line with the foundations of the Buddha's teachings. A few examples of what I mean. First, many Buddhist monks today only eat 1 time per day because the Buddha saw eating more than once per day as a gluttonous habit of the rich. However, with today's understanding of human metabolism, we now know that to be a healthy person, you should eat a few times per day. Therefore, to prescribe this rule to a monk would be in violation of right view, or seeing the world as it is. A second example is that some monks spend days at a time in meditation, which is a clear extreme that violates the central tenet of balance. In addition, Buddhist monks and nuns are all completely celibate, much like Christian monks.
Oh, are you a church-going man?
I am. Sometimes. Yes, I don't go religiously. I mean, I'm not a nut about it. Because there is no such thing as a nut when it comes to religion, Pastor.
I've met a few.
I'm sure if you look a little bit closer, you'll find some very earnest people that are just doing their best.
What are you doing, Dad?
Not sure.
Which was, in my opinion, a carryover from Hindu tradition. If some monks or nuns wish to be celibate, that's a personal choice, but to require it is also requiring them to be unbalanced in their lives. The standard retort that Buddhists have made in the past against such reforms is that a monk must be fully concentrated on nirvana, and indulging in sense pleasures such as sex or food or even long periods of sleep strengthens their attachments to the world, and if you recall, the Eightfold Path is partially about loosening these attachments. However, I disagree with this because I see monks who are depriving themselves of sleep, food, and even simple pleasures of life as an analog to the Hindu monastics of the Buddha's day. They are torturing themselves in the hope that this will somehow bring them closer to nirvana and the end of suffering. If someone is happy living their life like this in extreme deprivation, then by all means they should be allowed to, but dedicating one's life to pursuing nirvana should not require this. This is because nirvana, the end of suffering, is primarily about balance, or centrism. Now, to an extent, monks should be more detached from the world than the layperson because that's part of the Eightfold Path, but to what extent this would entail is up for debate. Certainly, the Buddha promoted moderation and control in the order, as shown by this quote from the Dhammapada, which is a very important Buddhist scripture. Just as a storm cannot prevail against a rocky mountain, so delusion can never overpower the man who lives meditating on the impurities, who is controlled in his senses, moderate in eating, and filled with faith and earnest effort. Whoever, being depraved, devoid of self-control and truthfulness, should don the monk's yellow robe, he surely is not worthy of the robe. But whoever is purged of depravity, well established in virtues, and filled with self-control and truthfulness, he indeed is worthy of the yellow robe. I think that the rules for monks and nuns should be up for debate by the entire Buddhist community, because the rules will ultimately change with time as culture, technology, and life evolve and change. One of the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, which I will cover at some later point, is that nothing is permanent, and this includes the rules governing monks and nuns. Now, this can be a controversial topic because there are verses which seem to contradict what I'm saying from the scriptures as well.
Well, that's the first I've heard of this.
This one, also from the Dhammapada, seems to suggest that monks should be entirely ascetic. The person who wears a robe made of rags, who is lean, with veins showing all over the body, and who meditates alone in the forest, him do I call a holy man. I do not call him a holy man because of his lineage or high-born mother. If he is full of impeding attachments, he is just a supercilious man. But who is free from impediments and clinging, him do I call a holy man. One is free to believe that the current monastic order and the rules governing them are perfect the way that they are, and that verses such as the above suggest that they should be as strict as they are, but one must also remember that the Buddha was merely a human being, not a god. He also stressed that everything changes, nothing is permanent, and he constantly talked about balance, using critical thinking, and experiential knowledge above all else. And from each of these perspectives, I don't think that the current monastic order is living by Buddhist principles any longer, and they need a reform. Now, related to this topic, but also a bit off topic, is that of robe colors, something that people have asked me about before. What do they mean? What is their significance? Where did they come from? That kind of thing. Well, the answer is pretty simple. The Buddha picked orange and red to symbolize fall-colored leaves because monks and nuns were like leaves about to fall from a tree, i.e. people about to leave behind suffering and enter nirvana. I'm honestly not sure the significance of wearing black as in the Zen tradition, but in general Zen monks wear black robes, Tibetan monks wear red robes, and all others wear orange or yellow. In my opinion, since centrism would differ from other forms of Buddhism in their monastic orders, I would think a different color of robe would be necessary. And I've considered blue, thinking that would be a good choice as it would represent the sky, symbolizing the person about to leave the world behind, mimicking the other color choices. But honestly, color isn't all that important. It's more of a symbolic gesture, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Anyway, those are my thoughts on centrism and the monastic order. I might have more in the future, and as always, things continually change, so this opinion is not immune to that rule. And I'd like to hear others' thoughts on this too, so please leave a comment below if you agree or disagree. I'm certainly not perfect, and I could be totally wrong. For now though, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps promote this video to others and helps out the channel, and it also gives me feedback on what to improve, so I really do appreciate it. And thanks again. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you next time.